The long-awaited release of some of the UFO files has come, but many are now eager for more footage, more proof, more answers. Now, of the files released, this one on your screen highly discussed, showing the moments astronauts reported seeing mysterious flashes of light during the Apollo 12 mission to the moon, all the way back in 1969. And another mystery, records from the Indo-Pacific Command showing multiple unidentified objects flying in a sort of formation through the skies, separating and coming back together again inexplicably. Though the president says he is committed to providing complete and maximum transparency, many still wondering, do these files definitively prove anything? And does the government know much more than they're really letting on? So what comes next when it comes to these files? To discuss, we are welcoming in renowned theoretical physicist, Harvard professor, head of the Galileo Project, Dr. Avi Loeb. It is always so wonderful to see you, Professor Loeb. Thanks for making the time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And what out of this release of files is most compelling to you? What do we need to be paying the most attention to?
Well, this is the first release, and I very much hope that we will see more interesting, intriguing data, because the most exciting data with high resolution images is probably taking more time to declassify. All in all, this is important psychologically because it brings the discussion to the mainstream of public discourse and the scientific community. And I salute President Trump for bringing in this transparency. It was also encouraged by the visionary leadership of Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who is requesting 46 videos from the Pentagon. Hopefully they will be released in the next batch within the coming month. There were, as you pointed out, those images from the moon that showed some blue lights above the horizon. And those are actually this evening calculated that are very likely due to cosmic rays, energetic particles, because we see the same blue points of light also in parts of the film from the Apollo mission that was not behind the lens. So we see the same phenomenon. It must be associated with cosmic rays. Also, the Artemis 2 astronauts took thousands of images of the dark side of the moon, and all they saw are 6 flashes from the impact of meteoroids on the surface, rocks on the surface, but nothing else, nothing anomalous. So I would argue there is no evidence for UFOs around the moon because we have much better cameras that the Artemis 2 astronauts were using than 50 years ago during the Apollo mission. With respect to the other images and the documents that we see, it's intriguing that all the way back to 1946, 47, there were high-level officials discussing objects they cannot identify. This star-like object that we see on the screen cannot be easily interpreted because there is a lot of information that is redacted in the image, but it could also be just a result of diffraction pattern within the camera. That would be my inclination because the orientation of this star does not change as it moves across the sky.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I want to revisit cosmic rays because, Professor, you just wrote an article, you posted it a couple hours ago, saying that we should not mistake cosmic rays for UFOs. Tell me more about this. What are cosmic rays? Why do they cause what appears to be sort of anomalous spots or lights on camera and video? And do you believe that many of the objects that we're seeing in these videos were actually just cosmic rays?
No, my statement has to do with the images from the Apollo missions to the moon. And cosmic rays are energetic particles that arrive to us from the Milky Way galaxy that we are embedded in. There is a sea of these particles moving near the speed of light, very energetic. And the moon has a flux of those particles that is 200 times bigger than we find here on the surface of Earth, simply because the atmosphere of the Earth and the magnetosphere of the Earth are blocking those particles from arriving to the surface of Earth. But the moon doesn't have an atmosphere or a magnetosphere, so these are much more common over there, and they can easily explain the blue dots of light that we see in the Apollo images. In fact, Buzz Aldrin reported about flashes of light within the capsule as he was traveling towards the moon, and indeed those could also be produced by cosmic rays. So there is clear evidence that that's the explanation, because we see the same blue lights also in parts of the film that was not behind the lens. And so clearly it has nothing to do with the sky that was imaged. It's more to do with particles entering into the camera. And other phenomena here on Earth were identified as UFOs. And for example, photographic plates from the Palomar Sky Survey show transient sources of light in them, but those could also be produced by cosmic rays coming in straight perpendicular to the photographic plate, and that's why they're transient. And I did some calculation that illustrates that the numbers are similar. So the claim was that these transient sources back in the 1950s could not have been due to human-made satellites, because the Sputnik was launched only later. And but on the other hand, these cosmic rays could be a very good explanation for those points of light. And in fact, you would expect them to anti-correlate with the solar wind. The sun ejects some plumes of hot gas every now and then that are called coronal mass ejections. And when they cross the Earth, they actually suppress the cosmic rays. And indeed, they see these transient points of light in the photographic plates being reduced when there is a lot of activity from the sun. So all in all, I would say there is no clear evidence for UFOs near the moon or in the 1950s as transient sources in photographic plates.
Yeah, I appreciate that context so much. What about the mystery, the records from the Indo-Pacific Command showing multiple unidentified objects flying in a sort of formation through the skies? We see them separate and come back together as well. We were looking at this video as we were doing the introduction to this segment. What is your take on that particular video?
Well, those are very intriguing, and I think the people within the Pentagon or the intelligence agencies should be concerned about these potentially being produced by adversarial nations. Maybe these are drones, balloons, who knows what they are. But the point is, some of this material must have been classified because of the inability of members of the Pentagon to interpret them. And that's a matter of national security. That's why it's a serious matter. And we need to invest more effort in figuring out what these objects in the sky are. Presumably, there are also some objects over the United States, but they don't show them to us because it shows the vulnerability of the intelligence or the defense system of the U.S.
Professor Avi Loeb, always fascinating to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
First guest tonight is one of the loudest voices in Congress calling for more UFO transparency. Missouri Republican Congressman Eric Burlison. He's a member of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee and its task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Congressman, I've been looking forward to our conversation. Welcome back, sir.
It's good to be here, Hannah.
So I'm going to start with a simple question first. When's the next batch of files coming? A lot of people want to see these documents and videos.
Well, the executive branch will move at the speed that they've been given. From what I've been told, they plan to do a release approximately every 2 weeks. Hopefully they'll be able to keep to that pace. But this is a very historic moment. The first release is really the first time a president has recognized that this is a topic that the American people deserve to know the answers to, and has disclosed this information. So we have, records, as you pointed out, going all the way back to the early Apollo missions, where our astronauts were silenced. What they experienced on the moon was not able to be shared with the American people. Thank goodness President Trump actually stepped in and forced the release of these files. So while there's a lot more to be released, this is an amazing and monumental first step.
You're a leading advocate for UFO transparency. Why are these files coming out in drips instead of one big release?
That's a great question. Just knowing the government and the way that it works, I can see why it's happening this way. There's so many different government agencies, and they have different layers of security, different layers of clearances. You know, you have, for example, the Department of Energy has an entirely different clearance structure. And so as the investigation goes about, they are trying to, piecemeal it. They're working through, for the first videos that came out are the low-hanging fruit, the videos that the Department of War had readily available, and frankly, that were easily searchable by terminology like UAP and UFO. So now that those first low-hanging fruit, video files and documents have been released, it's going to take a little bit more of a deeper dive in investigation and go tracking down some of this, following some of the threads, speaking to some of the people that worked on these programs, trying to get access to the real files. And I believe the real information is going to lie somewhere in between this government and the private sector. So we have what's called federally funded research and development centers, companies like Rand Corporation, MITRE Group, MIT Lincoln Labs, and they have kind of coordinated this government effort with the private industry. A lot of them are doing this secret work, and I've sent letters to be able to get them to release some of these documents and videos as well.
Are you confident the government will release everything? How do we know if they don't? And you've even suggested using subpoenas. Do you think that's necessary?
If it's necessary, we will use it. I've made it clear that I know of videos. I've already seen some videos that the American people deserve to see. And look, where I'm coming at this issue after seeing and investigating this for several years is that I still don't know what this is, but I know that there's something out there. So when you see objects that are flying that are not really actually using normal flight, when they're taking sharp right turns, when they're going from 0 to Mach 3 instantaneously, that's not conventional technology. And there's something that is really violating our U.S. airspace, in particular our military airspace. I've seen that footage. I've seen those objects. I've seen photographs of them. Something is up there. I just don't know what it is and what the origin is, but we need to get to the bottom of it.
The video that you're describing, are those the videos you hope the government releases for the American public and really the world to see, the way you're describing them? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and there's really a treasure trove of videos that exist that we often have whistleblowers come to us and talk to us about. Sometimes they're able to show us. And my expectation is that this administration is going to be releasing those files. And if they don't, then the break glass moment would be for a member of Congress like myself to go and release those under the speech and debate clause in a committee hearing or in some other formal fashion.
I've been watching your interviews all day, and you say these files will change people's perspectives on what's out there. Are you convinced from what's been released that we are not alone? Do you need further proof? What are you thinking, Congressman, with the videos that we've all seen and the ones that will trickle down, hopefully in the next week or two?
Yeah, I can't conclude that what we're seeing is non-human intelligence, but what I can conclude is that there's somebody's got a form of technology that is mind-blowing technology that's flying above our airspace. And whether it's us or our adversaries, foreign governments or other, is something that we really need to get to the bottom of.
Ryan Graves is a former Navy fighter pilot and founder of Americans for Safe Aerospace, and retired Admiral Tim Gallaudet is an oceanographer who served as the head of NOAA. He is the author of the upcoming book, Holding Fast in Heavy Seas. It's great to have both of you here on such a historic day. Ryan, let me start with you. I want to talk about a couple of these videos and transcripts because some of them are very interesting. One military video that caught our attention appears to show an aircraft. It's shaped like an 8-pointed star. You can see it sort of weaving through the air in the video. What do you think it is, Ryan?
I knew you'd start with that question. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, of course.
Right now, I think we're going to be in a state where there's maybe a bit more confusion than anything else as this information comes out. We've been talking for a number of years, almost 8 years now, just how common this was. But the public couldn't see that because this information was locked away behind security clearances. I think what President Trump and what Congress has been pushing for has led us to a state, and I'm appreciative. But there are other organizations that need to report in. I understand that this information is going to continue to come out on the timeline at this point. And I'm pretty excited for us to get into this data. This has been a few select people have seen, and now that the scientific community and academic community can get involved, I'm hoping that's going to drive us towards some certainty.
What did you think, though, Ryan? I'm curious, since, you know, you're a fighter pilot of this, with the 8 points there, but it looks like there is like a trail behind it. Any idea what it could be?
It's tough. The video that you're referencing, the first thing I see when I look at that, we have to remember that we're looking at the infrared energy that's coming from the device, not necessarily the physical shape of it. And so, what does that heat signature tell us? What does that field coming off the back tell us about the propulsion systems or how it's maneuvering? I don't have these answers. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that looks like that. I will say, with the reports that we've had at Americans for Safe Aerospace, other witnesses have described the same thing and have already reached out to me since the drop to remind me that they had the same experiences. So although these are onesie-twosie videos that the government has decided to release, this is something average people are seeing as well, not just sensor operators.
Interesting, Ryan. So you're saying other people have reached out even today saying that they've seen this same thing?
Exactly.
Wow, interesting. Admiral, we have to ask you about this Apollo trend. Sorry, what did you say, Ryan?
We'll be sharing that report on safeaerospace.org so other folks can go in and see that this isn't just a one-off occurrence.
Okay, cool. Yeah, check it out later. Admiral, we have to ask you about this Apollo transcript, also really interesting. In 1969 debriefing of Apollo 11 crew members, the astronaut Buzz Aldrin actually recalled spotting several unusual sights, including what he called a sizable object close to the moon and a fairly bright light source that the crew felt could be a laser. Another file is a NASA photograph from the Apollo 17 mission. That one was from 1972, showed 3 dots in a triangular formation. What's your take on those?
Well, interestingly, Brian, and thanks for having me too, the NASA videos and information, the images and information that were released are actually old. They've been released previously. I think the more important story is a lot of the videos and data that you see that were just released. And it's really significant in terms of a historic first that the executive branch of the government has finally acknowledged that there are UAP in our airspace and water space that we don't understand, can't characterize, and need to research. I'm on Ryan's advisory board for Americans for Safe Aerospace for this whole purpose, is to remove the stigma of UFO and actually get aviators and citizens to start reporting this more so we can do active research into this and understand their nature, the intelligent control behind them, which we have no idea about, and just understand their intent as well.
Yeah, you make a good point. Just the fact that the government is now actually admitting that they don't know what these things are is something that we didn't see for decades. Is it what you expected, Admiral, though? Admiral, are these the videos you expected to come out today? Did anything surprise you?
Well, actually, all the videos surprised me. Some of them are just absolutely impossible to explain. I mean, that wind farm video you showed, that is an object that we cannot reproduce. It's not a drone. It's not a helicopter, and it's under intelligent control. And so what is it? And I'm actually surprised the administration released that, because what that shows is that we are not in full control or understanding of what's in the airspace and water space of what we're operating in, whether it be in the continental U.S. or overseas in the areas that we're conducting operations. That's concerning. We need to address that if we don't understand what's happening. These reports are all filed by competent military operators with the purpose of saying, we don't know what these are. Look what's happening in Iran right now. We dominated that airspace. We know everything was happening. And so a report like this, when you look at how dominant our military is, to say, we don't know what that is. A lot of these are MQ-9 Reaper platforms. Some of them are Navy P-8 platforms. And they're saying, these are competent pilots like Ryan was, flying off the USS Theodore Roosevelt as an F-18 pilot. We don't know what these are. And actually, they're interfering with our operations and presenting safety concerns. That's a problem. So I hope that the administration will follow through and release more information and start developing policy about research to get to the bottom line of what these are.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, this certainly feels like a big moment forward, a big step forward for UFO transparency. But will this help your effort to erase the sort of like stigma for pilots? I remember you've talked about it. You know, if a pilot comes forward, a commercial pilot, a military pilot, and says, I saw something unexplainable, people would sort of make fun of them. They'd be nervous about losing their pilot's license. Do you think this is going to help with that?
I really do. We've been operating in a vacuum. People haven't been receiving the information. And so when they hear these stories, something that sounds fantastical, of course, it's easy to dismiss that. But what they're also dismissing are the real national security and aviation safety concerns that come behind those reports, showing that some of our best trained operators, both in the air and with sensors, are recording this and deeming it important is going to show this isn't just some one-off thing that certain people have, but this is a repeatable pattern that we can track and understand over the course of our normal military operations and with our aviation safety apparatus that we have. And so absolutely, I think that when people see this, they should realize that what they saw wasn't just a fleeting thing that they can ignore. It's something part of a larger picture, and they have a responsibility to report that and add to that story.
Yeah, you just hope that more people will come forward now and feel comfortable doing that with these videos being released. Admiral Tim Gallaudet, Ryan Graves, really appreciate you both for coming on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, there's something out there, and former U.S. Marine Michael Herrera has seen it. In 2009, while stationed in Indonesia, Herrera's battalion was assisting with humanitarian operations, providing security for supply drops to the locals. Once there, he saw a rotating object changing colors and emitting a humming sound. After failing to reach his battalion leader, he moved in to investigate and began filming with a small camera. But moments later, Herrera says he was ambushed by men in black as the craft shot towards the ocean at lightning speed without making a sound. Once back at camp, he checked his camera only to find the battery and memory card were gone. So what happened next? Here to tell us is former U.S. Marine and whistleblower Michael Herrera and UFO researcher Dr. Stephen Greer. Great to see you both. Thank you so much. So, Michael, tell us what happened after you saw the video and you thought it was, the flying object, and then it got deleted, no longer to be seen?
Yeah, so when we got back it was in Subic Bay in the Philippines, and that's when we were on Liberty. So we ended up having the first night. It came back to on ship, and my camera was on my rack. So the memory card and the battery were taken out of that.
Did you see it taken out by someone?
No, I did not. No, I had it secured in my locker, of course. Okay, and another battery that I had for a backup, so I popped that one in. Nothing happened with that camera. So subsequently, after we got back to Camp Hansen, there was a Air Force Lieutenant Colonel that met up with us and some of the guys that were with me and basically made us forcefully sign a non-disclosure agreement and a TSSI document that stated that we couldn't talk about what we saw. We were threatened with treason, with a capital crime, including death or imprisonment. So that's what happened after.
Okay, that's very serious. Dr. Greer, how did you learn about Michael's story and what he experienced?
Well, he approached me some years ago. And of course, when he told me the story, we knew it was a man-made UFO or UAP, probably from the Lockheed Skunk Works. And the big story that no one wants to talk about is that 80% of the sightings of these objects are man-made, and they've been used in human trafficking. What he saw were crates with HVAC systems on it being loaded on to this 300-foot diameter octagonal UFO. But it was not alien. It was ours.
Okay.
And so the ones that are man-made are the dominant phenomenon being seen. There are extraterrestrial ones, or NHI, non-human intelligence, but that's probably a minority now. And this is the big story, is that the technologies behind those systems have been developed by some would call deep state, but illegal and unconstitutional programs. So tomorrow we're doing a National Press Club event at 3 p.m. where we're going to have multiple whistleblowers like Mr. Herrera to sort of unpack that and expose what's really going on. And of course, the president has ordered a release of many files. But the question is, has he gotten enough information about this? My archive has some 20 terabytes of data. I have 760 whistleblowers like Mr. Herrera.
So, Mr. Herrera, Michael, last year you issued a warning to other whistleblowers. You briefed the Senate Intelligence Committee. You've also briefed the Pentagon.
Do you still have warnings for other whistleblowers who may come forward, or have you seen more cooperation now that the president has said we want more transparency around UAPs and other things that have been not explained that people are clearly seeing and recording on their own devices?
Well, that's an excellent question, Katie. I'm still always cautious to let people to understand that there is a big risk when coming forward to an extent. Now, when we have legislation that was passed through the National Defense Authorization Act that allows certain precautions to be taken for people's careers, but when it comes to personal safety, it's a lot different. So working towards people's personal safety is the biggest concern as long as they're protected. A lot of these people also have families. They have a career that rewards them and pays them enough to take care of their families. So when they give up that line of work,
Right.
they no longer have that stability. So they're coming into the public world, if you want to call it that, with no stability. So again, they're losing their career, they're losing their clearances, they're losing everything, and including their pensions and their benefits.
And also, they're often threatened with what are called wet works or targeted killings. So
Who is threatening them? Who is doing the threatening?
we know who they are. I don't want to name names right now.
Are they from the government? Are they
They're
private?
mostly private corporate contractors that have been ordered to snuff out people. And this is absolutely true. Now, law enforcement has been given this information over the last 3 or 4 years by us, and we're hoping that Kash Patel and the Department of Justice will run that to ground, because they're doing extrajudicial killings, but the entire programs are being run off budget and treasonous. So remember, I briefed the first CI director for Bill Clinton, and they knew nothing about this, even though we had the evidence for it.
So, Michael, are you concerned about your safety?
I've got things in position just in case things do happen. I am working actively with federal law enforcement. In certain instances I'm not going to go into, but again, people's safety and people's security is very important. So if the government's going to take serious of this nature, at least what we're dealing with reprisals, if they're able to tackle that problem significantly, you're going to start seeing a lot of people want to come forward with information that is going to be correct and is going to pave a way for the government to actually have knowledge into certain programs that have existed illegally and unconstitutionally.
So just to be clear, so where this is coming from, are private companies who are doing these types of programs, or is this the government doing
both.
this?
So let me explain the
Because why would the federal government be helping if these are programs that the federal government is running with these private companies?
Well, it probably isn't politically correct to say this. There are two governments. There's the government of we the people, the president, the Congress, and there's a shadow covert program government. Yeah. And so this entity is sort of a hybrid of the two. And I discovered that in the early 90s. It's now been proven that that's the case, and I think the administration and law enforcement know that. Yeah. So they're having sort of an awakening on this in the last few years since the president came in.
Okay.
But this process, remember, I started this process in 1993.
Right.
When I was a young medical doctor.
Yeah, many years doing it. But you're having a big summit tomorrow. You will be there. Other whistleblowers, we will watch for that. Watch for news. Michael Herrera, Dr. Stephen Greer, thank you for joining us. Great to see you. Looking forward to seeing that, too.
So for generations, people have looked, to the skies, searching for answers to one of humanity's biggest questions. Are we alone? But what if we've been looking in the wrong place? What if the answers aren't above us, but below us, deep below the surface of our oceans? That is a shocking question. That sounds, I know, something like science fiction, but it is now being taken quite seriously by researchers, former military officials, thousands of people who say they've seen something they can't explain. Are mysterious objects moving off of America's coastlines and around the world? What's that mean? A popular UFO tracking platform, it's called Enigma, claims that it has logged more than 30,000 global UFO reports since its launch in 2022, and that includes more than 9,000 reports of what are known as USOs, unidentified submerged objects, spotted within 10 miles of U.S. shoreline since August of last year. Witnesses describe objects moving at incredible speeds underwater, making sharp turns, even allegedly going between the ocean and the sky without a trace. California and Florida, they're reporting some of the highest numbers, but it isn't just happening there. Enigma says its data, combined with recently declassified Pentagon files, shows cases stretching from the Arabian Gulf. Some former military officials warn that these objects could pose national security questions. There are skeptics, sure, that say, it just may be ordinary explanations, that unexplained doesn't mean extraterrestrial. What are these people really seeing? Why does so much of this activity appear to be happening around the water? Joining me to explain, Alejandro Rojas, UAP analyst, consultant for Enigma Labs. Thank you so much for taking the time. First, what is Enigma and how does it track? Does it track every claim out there and it puts it, or is there some sort of verification?
Yeah, so we are really a reporting and analysis and alert system for UAP. People can report those on our app or on our website. And we don't take everything. We actually have AI and humans scrape these cases first. Really, we just don't want to get any personal information out there. Sure. That's what AI is looking for. And then we have a human look at it to make sure they're not hoaxes or mistakes or anything that isn't intended to be out there. But otherwise, yeah, anything that's reported gets out there.
So in other words, this is a real thing. USOs are a real thing, what you're seeing here. And if that is a real thing, why by the water?
That's the big question. And, you know, you had mentioned reports of things going in and out of the water. That's commonly referred to as transmedium because they're flying inside of the water and the air. We don't really have technologies that can do that. And that's what made this particular type of sighting even more interesting.
Well, I mean, the humans have explored, what, less than 5% of the ocean. They mapped 28% with sonar. What is down there? I don't know, a kraken, but I mean, it could be something like this. It does make me wonder, the recent release, correct me if I'm wrong, it's coinciding with some of these civilian accounts of these USOs?
Yeah, so there are a lot of similarities. For instance, a lot of the reports that we're seeing from the military, including with this recent drop, are orbs or lights or even metallic orbs flying around. That's mostly what's being reported in the public as well, including in the area. So the Middle East had about 5 cases that were near water, really with Enigma. We're getting these reports actually from individuals in the Middle East, whereas the reports that we had recently from the government are reported from the military. But we've got 33 similar kind of reports in that region. And then in the Indo-Pacific area, where there is 1 report in this recent file drop, we've got 83 reports. So, yeah, there is a correlation, a lot of similarities between what the military is seeing and what the civilians are reporting.
Are you seeing a pattern? They pop up at the same time. They do the same kind of things. They look the same.
The orbs are what's similar. The other characteristics that are similar, you had mentioned moving very fast. That's certainly extraordinary, especially underwater. The other one are the kind of right turns, the moving very quick and then being able to change direction very fast. One of these videos that was dropped just last week by the military demonstrates that. This is one near Greece that's gotten a lot of attention. And, you know, that's the sort of technology, again, we don't see mirrored with our own aircraft.
What else could it be? For the skeptics out there, says, you know, it could be anything. If it's not what we're, you know, on the extreme, right? You're talking some advanced military technology or extraterrestrials. What else could it possibly be what we're seeing here or what's being reported?
You know, that's the tough question is what these are. And it's a national security issue, of course, if they are foreign actors or if they're enemies or their technology out there that is beyond what we can do. But then the other question is the big question mark. If they're not ours, if they're not technology that's made by anybody around here, whose are they? And you had brought up, you know, that we haven't explored a lot of the ocean. So if there is some third party here that is very advanced and they're trying to stay hidden or kind of out of the way, the ocean would be a great place to do it.
That's what I was thinking of that too. What do we do with this? Is there any technology we can set up to better track it, monitor it, predict it in these specific areas?
Well, I think the first thing that we do, which has only been done recently, is that the military needs to take it seriously and they need to start collecting those reports. The other thing is we need transparency. We need to be able to figure out or have that information shared with us. No doubt they take this sort of thing seriously, but what are they doing with it? And then, you know, if it's something that isn't an enemy, what are the protocols to get that out to the public? What we've seen in these drops are kind of cases that have been just kind of dumped out there with very little information or very little analysis attached to them. Really, we need some serious analysis and we need to be able to, you know, get some answers.
Well, I'll tell you what, you and me, we're grabbing our snorkels. We're going in We're going to figure it out together, okay? You go first, I'll follow, but our snorkels are going to be ready and we're going to do it. We're going to go into the ocean and figure out what's happening. Alejandro Rojas, you're on board with me on that? I see a yes.
I'm definitely on board.
Great.
And I'm
Fantastic.
excited because in this case of 46 cases, that are supposed to be dropped soon, some of those are labeled USOs. So these are the military saying they're USOs. So
let's continue the conversation on that when it comes out. I'd love to see what it is, and you'll help explain it to us. So thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time.